Lisa, could you talk a little bit about your inspiration for this show? Like what got this ball rolling for you?
I'll start.
I don't think we can say it better than the people in the chat who are saying it's wonderful and funny and that was no.
I like a woo woo woo,
Yeah.
Todd. Actually, it was inspired by a true story that happened when we were performing a show that we co-wrote and I was in called Life. Who knew? And we were at a place kind of like the Villages, but not in Florida. And they had paid us to perform this show. And it was a true thing that happened where the mistress of ceremonies told us backstage, you know, we're gonna serve the cake after. I said, you know, they can eat cake while we perform. It's fine. I don't care if they eat cake and drink coffee and what. She's like, no, we have to wait till the after, because if we don't, then no one will stay.
Because they really were coming for the cake.
They were, and
we were the content before the cake.
Yeah, that was the headline. We're just the opening act.
That's incredible. And then I'd love to hear a little bit. I know that you guys wanted to work with Jen on this piece. Jen, could you talk a little bit about like your relation to this relationship to this show and to Tor and Lisa?
Well, I met Tor and Lisa over the summer, I think, and by a mutual friend who connected us, and they had this piece, and I read it, and I immediately, I just connected to it so much. I thought it was so funny, had such heart to it, and I love that all these older actors get to play all these juicy, fun roles. And delightful and unexpected ways. And just talking about aging and life, and it's such a positive take on that, and as we all get older and we ask ourselves these questions, what is my aging process going to be? What could it be? And I love that this take on it from so many different angles and so many different walks of life and so many different stories about these relationships, that it's such a positive take on how aging can be a wonderful new act in your life. And then I also really responded to their show within a show, which is such a great device to sort of thread throughout the show, and these are sort of delightful vignettes that they do. And that these people, aren't afraid to sort of live and change and grow and strike up new relationships. And, I just really responded to that as, I'm getting older and I would love to be all of these people in some way. Yeah,
absolutely. They're all, one of the taglines that Tor and Lisa had about the show, but that I really enjoy, is the fact that all of these characters are dying to live. They're like really excited about living. In a moment where we often think of people as kind of receding into themselves.
That was kind of the main impetus for how we wanted to write it, because so many times older people are portrayed as clowns, jokes, or the butt of the joke, or and it's funny because no older person I've ever met ever really acts like that. And they're human beings just like at any age. And frankly, they're a lot of times wiser than people who are younger than them. And what's really important to Lisa and I is that we write something that feels real, and that was the most important thing that I'm sure your audience would have many comments about is, did it feel real? Did it feel like people would talk like that? That's, to us it does, because most of the characters in the play are based on people we know who talk like that. I'm sure. I mean, I know my mother was watching, and Denise is my mother's name, and she's a therapist. And and there's my Aunt Carol and my Aunt Phyllis, who has passed, even though we kept her alive in this show, Diane. So it was important that it feels real, but also someone said in the comments said pathos, and that, and I'm really glad somebody said that, because that was that was something that was important to us to come off. And somebody in the comments said it was a little too close to home for me for the dementia issue, and somebody else just said they loved how we dealt with it in a real way. And it's a tough issue, you know,
It
and
is.
we almost didn't. I just want to respond to that because we almost didn't do that. But at the end of the day, we felt that is something on a lot of different levels, some acute and some very light, deal with at a certain age. Even if it's not dementia, we all, you know, memory issues start in your 50s. Trust me, I'm already experiencing that. And so, you know, 40s for you. Anyway, so you know, it's something that we wanted to not be afraid to deal with anything, but also deal with it in a way that was that can create a connection, and it didn't feel like, oh, I'm watching those old people, but I'm not old.
Yeah.
Ideally, you'd feel a connection to them because they're not talking about old people issues. We're talking about all issues that affect your whole life: love, loss, all type friendship, all these kind of themes that we deal with since we're born till we die.
Absolutely. There's an answer in the Q&A section from John Toohey. How many actors would you like to see in a staged production?
Well, that's one of the reasons why we wanted to have the Zoom, and thank you guys so graciously for doing this, everybody involved, and allowing this opportunity to happen, because as writers, we have to hear it out loud. We have to see how things transition, and also hear feedback from the actors, and understand, you know, well, this doesn't work here. We'd like to, you know, mess around with the order of things, because that's what we get to do when we have a world premiere at a place like Portland Stage. But that is something that we're toying with, and right now it's looking to be around 5 to 22. That's depending on the actors, really, and depending on how we can sort of tweak this, going back after this experience and rewriting and thinking about, you know, can we take it down to 4? Let's think about that. Let's also think about if it's realistic. That's a part of the whole process, really.
I mean, I think it can be done with 4, especially if one of the actors, obviously in this case, one of the male actors, plays the piano, because we love you know, because we've been to a few of these places. We didn't just write this out of our imaginations. You know, there usually are a couple of people who on certain nights, who are residents, they go and play the piano to entertain people in the ballroom or in the side room. We went to her grandmother's place in St. Louis, and there was a piano there. I actually ended up entertaining with Lisa, but in general, there's a piano there, and some of the residents go and play it, and it's really nice, you know. And so if we could do that, 4 is a no-brainer. For license, I don't know. I'll just say it. I'll explain it. But for licensing, meaning when people, other theaters across the country pick up the play to do in their theaters, if they want to have 22 people, great, because then everybody gets a part, and that can I can see it be really dynamic either way. I think there's Jen can speak to this, I'm sure, but when there's 4 people, it's a certain directorial challenge, but can also enhance the themes of the show. When there's 22, and that's another challenge. So Jen, maybe you want to talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's so great is the fungible nature of the actors. And what's fun for actors, and maybe I'll turn it over to the actors, is to get to wear different hats and play these different characters. And it's delightful for the audience to see the actors sort of stretch themselves. And I also feel so strongly that I get so tired of seeing the trope of I see an older actor, and I think, oh God, it's going to be the kooky maid, the grandmother, the one line and leave. And it's so nice to see the combined experience of decades of years of experience as an actor and a human being come to bear in these really rich and full and funny and touching stories. And it's not something we see enough of, that we get enough of, and that we can get so much out of it. Maybe I'll turn it over to one of the actors to ask them how it is playing multiple characters.
It's really fun. It's a lot of fun, and of course in a production, you know, I was thinking it's so much more challenging with Zoom, because in a production you'll have the wigs and you'll have the, you know, the shoes. Give me the shoes and I'll give you a character, you know. And so I think that would be even more fun, a full production.
The funnest part was hanging with these guys.
No, was it fun? I can't wait to see you and touch you and kiss you and hug you. I think I think this has been fun. I love being able to play all these people that I got to play and listen to everyone. Oh, I would be so sad if it changed and it didn't stay this way. It's a challenge. It's exciting. It's a challenge and it's exciting.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Mo, you're muted.
I kept thinking we were all going to go out for drinks afterwards.
Oh, I know. I can't wait. I
We
can't wait.
realized that we weren't anywhere near what. Well,
Too late.
There's everybody's, and I didn't bring a drink to the theater.
Having a vodka, lemonade,
Oh, I'd love some.
juice.
I'll find some somewhere.
We have some other questions in the chat. Some people said they'd love to see all 5 of you on stage in the production. They thought it was wonderful. You all were perfect. Riley McGovern-Pitsy has a question for the actors. What was it like performing all of this on Zoom for all of you?
Still working on that stuff.
Sorry.
Still working on it.
Like a fish in a fowl, you know?
Whew.
It's not acting necessarily filmically, and it's not obviously on a stage, and so it's its own animal. It's its own thing. It's a challenge.
It sort of bends toward radio style in a way, in a weird way.
Yeah, I think the idea of what I found as a challenge is because I'm challenged with the computer anyway, but I'm getting better. Because we were doing so many things in this particular situation with the costumes, the microphones, the tape recorders, I found that very, very challenging and very difficult, pressing little buttons, blah, 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 blah. But I think I can get used to, well, I think we're going to have to get used to it. I love the way Jen directed it. There was such validity, these little movements that made so much sense. I mean, it was just wonderful. I mean, you can't feel it as an actor because you're literally looking at the script, but it does. It comes through, doesn't it, everybody? It just comes through.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
everybody was so good. You're such wonderful actors. It's such a sweet.
Someone else dropped a question in the chat about how this isn't really easy to not having an audience that you can see. But also, I wanted to say, like, since this is a comedy and that so often lives and dies with your audience and the laughter, I'm so glad that in the chat, people are saying that they were laughing out loud in their houses. But I wonder what it was like to perform a comedy and not be able to hear your laughs.
Well, look, to perform a comedy is one thing. To perform a comic monologue, I mean, that was like some form of ancient torture to do this and to talk and imagine and leave. Well, there's no time. I mean, I know a lot of comics. They sometimes work 5 years on one routine. That's how long it takes to cultivate it and find out what it is. But it's pretty. It was pretty scary. But there's only one thing to do: is just jump both feet. And
It's a little difficult because your audience tells you what's funny. You know, you get your rhythms from your audience, so that's kind of a little difficult.
I saw John Cariani. Hi, John. John's here in the chat.
John! Hey, John.
And he had a question that I think is for Tor and Lisa. He was wondering about time. The talent show is taking place at one time, but correct me if I'm wrong, some of the other scenes are taking place at the same time, some aren't. For example, the stand-up comedian goes from therapy and then we see a stand-up. I wonder if there's something
I just want to
cooler
clarify one thing. John Cariani knows nothing about playwriting. That's just where I need to start. John's actually one of the best playwrights of all time, and he's totally right to point that out. And the way I think what you don't get on Zoom, well, you don't get a lot, but certainly what is painfully missing is staging and lighting, right? And so, like, the way, I mean, I'm glad that these particular stage directions weren't read, but in the stage directions, you'll see there's a spotlight on, the lights dim here, the thing, you know what I mean? So it should feel, and this is what we can't tell here and what we could only see live. It should feel out of time, that the audience should feel a little like, oh, now I'm here and now I'm here, right? And that should feel good, warm, and also a little bit uncomfortable, because that's where we feel this whole play lives, in the sea of the, we don't know how much time we have left. And so it should feel that way. That being said, it, John's point is well taken. It
Right.
may not work.
Well, that's also, this is a new draft. And also
Right.
we did changes this week as we were rehearsing. And one of the things we played with in this new draft is moving things. And some things did line up to where they went from the one scene right into the next scene, just like the demented comic went from his therapy sessions. That wasn't in the original script that way. It was different. So that said, I'm also open, and we are talking about shifting things a little bit, making it more out of that flow and more disjunct from character to character, so that you do have separation, and see if that actually is, it might be even more confusing, or it might lend itself to saying this is actually better. We're not really sure yet.
When we did our first reading, which wasn't even that much more elaborate than this, except there were people there on a stage and an audience. And we didn't have the spotlight when, we didn't do any lighting or anything like that. But I felt you did get a sense of, oh, now we're at the show again. The show is always happening. And I guess, not to sound tropey or cliche, but I mean, the way Lisa and I feel that in real life, the show is always happening. And I got a clap from Diane. That means a lot.
I mean, I think something, because this is a Zoom format and it's hard to sort of envision. If you think of a show like the show Cabaret, which has a show within a show, that there's scenes and a storyline, and then they go to the cabaret. It's not like that, but that is sort of the theatrical convention and the envelope in which it lives.
Yeah. I think that's a beautiful moment to kind of wrap this up on. I know that there's more questions that people have. And if we haven't answered your question, feel free to send that to info@portlandstage.org, and we'll get that to Tor and Lisa. We'll get that to Jen, and we're happy to answer your questions. I just know we've been gabbing on a little long. And so thank you all so much for being here. I did see...
Say one other thing to Mary Ellen Carew. She said, I was so grateful nobody died on stage. Thanks for that.
Comedy.
It's a great comedy.
You're really
good.
I know we got
Can I say one thing before?
What a pleasure this is.
Sure.
I
There are
cannot.
some really good questions. I hope
we all meet.
answer them.
I want to say one thing. When we started out with the script, and it's only been 3 days, but I mean, I saw a lot of, older people talk very simply and efficiently to each other. And I started to see, as the time went on, as I examined the script a little more and more and more, just how Todd and Lisa had really, what they were really saying was, yeah, they're not going to say a lot of things, but once you start learning, it takes a while for actors to staple the emotion, the proper emotion. I mean, I must have gone through 10 choices for every character, but once you do, you realize there's emotion under it. And the thing is, people of this generation like to keep their emotions under a hat. And I was discovering little by little, as it was kind of blooming and sort of growing before me. I'm the stupid one. The script was there. I realized there's a lot going on, and it's sort of odd playing emotions that are being slightly suppressed, but that are full in the person. It feels, at first it felt like playing a negative, but after a while I was just, I don't know about others, just starting to hit the realization of it. Maybe not in time, but I just wanted to say.
I think you're right. There's a lot of meat here. A lot of meat.
You gotta let it go for it's like a braise. You gotta let it go for a while.
Nicely put.
Absolutely. There's one more thing that was in the chat that I wanted to address. There is a recording of this that we're doing right now. It'll be up through Monday. So if you really loved this show and you wished that someone else had seen it, we'll have a link for you tomorrow on Portland Stage's website. And you'll be able to watch that over the weekend. But thank you all so much. Thank you, actors, for all of your wonderful work. Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Tori and Lisa. Thank you, Meredith, for stage directions and all your work that you've been doing this week.
Oh, yeah.
And I hope y'all have a wonderful evening.
Well, listen, I just want to say real quick,
Yeah.
TorandLisa.com. If there's so many people that are saying cool things and have some good suggestions, if you can find us at TorandLisa.com, and there's our email on there if you want to reach out. I wanted to say that. Okay.
Awesome. Thanks, y'all.
All the actors again. You guys were amazing.
God.
Wow, what a great
Thank you.
best Zoom performance I've ever seen. Thank you,
Honestly, thank you, Jen.
Jen, yay, Meredith, everybody.
Thank you, Todd.
Wow, thank you guys.
rock, you
Thank you,
guys.
Todd.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.
Good night.